Alright, so this is another thing that I see a lot of discussion on. In fact, we talked about this for like 20 minutes on stream the other day. And it's when Lilim Harlot is properly going to be dropping over here on the NA side of things. So for people that are really curious and are super concerned for, I don't know, some obvious reasons, maybe they just want to, get the new servants that are coming out, right? Maybe they're just a little bit interested. For those people, I'm going to go ahead and just kind of break down the dates for how this actually works out for this coming out in late March. So there's two ways that they could do this. They could, one, be meaning that Lilim Harlot is actually going to drop properly at the end of March, which means we would be seeing the pre-release campaign a little bit earlier. The pre-release campaign, just for context, is when Tiamat comes out. The event proper is when we get people like Locusta and Draco dropping. So just, if you're concerned about banners, we have that coming up. Now, the other thing that we have is we have the Takasugi event. So they don't overlap events. We don't get that in FGO. They don't just, oh, well, I mean, we have the last week of heavy industries going on right here, but let's just go ahead and drop the actual Lilim Harlot event. But they will drop pre-releases and stuff, or other like smaller events, things like Advanced Quest or Evocation Festivals, stuff along those lines can drop midway through an event because they're not really their own thing, right? It's not as though they're bringing a whole new event with the story and new servants and blah, 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 you guys get the deal. They don't do that stuff usually. So the Takasugi event over here, just to show, did drop over here on the 5th for people that maybe weren't paying attention. But so that dropped on the 5th, which is a Wednesday. 3 weeks from then, to allow this event to fully run its course, means that we could be expecting the pre-release campaign at the earliest, in my opinion, on the 19th of March. That would still allow Lilim Harlot to properly drop the following week on the 26th. Now, I do think there is also a world where we could potentially see if they wanted to shift things a little bit, where they would, and this is kind of something we got into during stream, do a little bit of trolling, and technically Lilim Harlot drops on March 31st. That is the very last week of March, and there's only 1 day of March remaining for that. But it would still technically have Draco releasing at the very last day of March. It would drop at that point. But I do think the most likely thing to happen is this event is going away, right? It's going to end on the 25th, as you can see right here. We don't have to speculate when it's going to end, right? We have the exact dates. And so it's either Lilim Harlot, the pre-release campaign, drops on the 26th, and then that following week is when the Draco stuff starts to drop, just a couple of days after that following Monday, or they do the pre-release campaign on the 19th during the last week of this event, and then they drop the Draco event, because that is not unprecedented. It is not unprecedented for them when they're trying to move the schedule up a little bit for whatever reason. My personal speculation that I would love to see is that during the anniversary, they announced they're just trying to get like a year behind the FGO JP version, because a whole other discussion, but I think a year of clairvoyance is still completely reasonable. 2 years is a bit much to see a new servant come out, to see a buff for a character that you want to play with. I know that they are 2 years out is a bit ridiculous, especially when a lot of the other versions are more caught up than we are, and some of them started later than we did. So if that is something that they would like to build up for, that would be really nice. I would appreciate seeing a new servant coming out and just being like, oh, they'll come out next year. That would just make things a lot more easy and convenient, especially because the stuff that they have in here that they want to fit in, it's not like anything crazy. The thing that we're missing is right in here, and it's Ordeal Call 1, because I guess they're trying to keep that hidden. They're trying to be like, ooh, who knows if the story event's coming out? These players don't know. They have no idea. But I think that's when you could expect Lilim Harlot to drop. It's either going to be the pre-release campaign goes during the 3rd week of the event so that they can drop it properly in a full week of March, or it is very literally late March and it drops on like the last day of the month. I think those are two things you can expect. Either way, you're going to be having Draco and Tiamat dropping in like 2 or 3 weeks, right? Like it's not as though like, oh, you got like a whole extra month. It's like, no, they're coming out pretty soon. Like they're gonna be dropping in a hot minute. I mean, you could just look at the Takasugi event as the calm before the storm, where you shouldn't be summoning on any of the banners, so that we can get those last little bits of Saint Quartz, just trying to get them ready for Tiamat and Draco, right? Which I mean, for people that are going to comment on this being like, well, now that we kind of have an idea and I know when they're going to be dropping, should I summon for them? What's the summoning strategy? And just to not have to make a whole other video on it, for me, right, my view is that Draco is an insanely rare servant. We had a interview with Nasu, pretty much like the head writer for the game, who was saying the reason you don't see Draco on a lot of these like GSSR banners or lucky bags as they're properly called is because getting a beast class servant isn't very lucky, you know, because they're supposed to be, you know, big evil people. So it wouldn't be very lucky for you to have one, right? Even though, I mean, once you read the event, Draco's fine. Draco's, I've gone on record saying, like, I've said this multiple times, but I do view after reading the Lilim Harlot story that Draco might be one of our most loyal servants. She might be our best ride or die of all time. So it's like, I don't know about that one, Nasu. He didn't write this event. I think the guy's name that wrote it was like Meteor or something is like his name, the author's name. He was the one that wrote it. He wrote, it's like some, what is it, like Demon Bane, I think is that what that guy wrote. So he didn't write it, but I understand the thought process, but it's also like, bro, we're playing a gacha game. You should just let people be able to get stuff like Draco on GSSRs. But for that reason, for the foreseeable future, while like Nasu is still going to be involved in FGO before he leaves to go start working on like Mihoyo's 2 and 3, that is something you have to deal with. And so Draco does come back with the rerun of Lilim Harlot, but a thing you have to consider is that that was voted for on the JP side of things because they needed 2 events as filler, because Ordeal Call 3, the one that we had tying into summer, was not planned to come out. That was like a spur of the moment idea that Nasu had, and was like, I want to write something for the Moon Cancers and I want to do something with the extra characters, and so they had to fit that in, so they gave us that month. They allowed people to vote for events that they wanted to rerun. I say all that to say that that is not guaranteed for us to get. For one, we might just move past that. If they are going to try to get the games a little bit more caught up, that is something we would probably miss out on. Or 2, they might even let us vote for our own 2 events. You know, if we don't want to do Lilim Harlot and we don't want to do the Da Vinci Ruler summer event also got rerun during that time. If we don't want to do that, we might just get a different rerun or something along those lines. So she just turns out to be like one of the more rare characters in the game. Whereas Tiamat, I mean, she is on GSSRs. In fact, my game plan, if you're looking at me in particular, I'm planning on just doing the GSSR that has Tiamat on it, because it's Tiamat, Durga, Pope Joanna, and I think it's Saber Medusa or something. I think that's the 4. So a bunch of characters that I would not have anyway, and a bunch of characters that I really like. And so prioritizing trying to get the rarer character and then shooting for the other one on different GSSRs. That's also because Tiamat is not as a, I guess, huge priority for me to get. She's a Black Grail Buster Farmer, right, which is really, really good, obviously. But during like New Year's, I was able to get Archetype Earth to NP2 on the GSSR. So like that's not as big of a prio for me. I also have, you know, Morgan NP5, obviously, right? So like for that, it's not as big of a deal for me. So you can kind of just weight that in the way that whatever is more high prio for you. Like if you're fine just tossing Draco on like the Destiny Order banner and hoping that you get her off that, that's also perfectly fine. But just know that during anniversaries, for someone like Tiamat, technically you have 2 shots because the GSSR and Destiny Order, plus GSSRs that we get on New Year's, whereas Draco, you just got to get her when she comes out. Like, she comes out, she gets a raid up, you just got to summon and hope that you get her. We should also be getting her for the every servant gets a raid up, because Draco is a servant that came out before 2025. I don't know how that's exactly going to work, because there's not a whole bunch of characters, so they might just toss like Space Rescue and Draco on a banner and call it a day. But yeah, I would prio, if you're trying to go for the rarer characters, me personally, I would go for Draco. But if you're one of those guys where you're just like, you're not as big of a fan of the Saber Faces and you just want your big mommy character, then by all means go for Tiamat. She's not bad at all whatsoever. I mean, she also doesn't really have a whole ton of raid ups either. So that is something that if you do prioritize Tiamat a little bit more, there's no problem with doing that. But yeah, you should be expecting the both of them to be dropping in late March. You could at best assume that we might be able to get the pre-release going on like the 19th. if they want to run it on the last week of the event. But if they don't want to take away from White Day, then you should expect it on the 26th. And then that following week, you should expect Draco to drop. Although, again, that might be getting really technical where they're like, well, see, technically, Lilim Harlot actually dropped during the last week of March on the 31st. It's like more like the last day, but sure, we see you with that one. So we'll have to see what they decide to do. I think it'll give us kind of an insight if they do decide to put the pre-release during the last week of White Day, the Heavy Industries event. That'll kind of give us an inkling as to if they're trying to push the game forward just a little bit, like move the schedule up, or if they kind of just wait until the event actually properly goes away, then it's like, okay, they're kind of just doing a normal scheduling thing. So we'll see about that, but I hope this video was informative and this kind of helped you out in making a decision and knowing when these characters are going to be coming out. So with that being said, like the video, subscribe, all that good stuff, and I'll catch you guys in tomorrow's video. Peace, light guys.